In the age of myth, before the world knew suffering, there was no winter.
There was no cold, no starvation, no death of the land. The earth was a paradise. This was the domain of Demeter, the great Olympian goddess of the harvest, of grain, and of all growing things.
Her joy was the world's fertility, and she was always joyful.
For she had a daughter, a child of the spring, whose
Her name was Persephone, the maiden, the Kore.
The love between mother and daughter was the engine of the world. Demeter gave life, and Persephone was life itself.
Stay in the meadow, my child. Stay where my light can see you.
yeah.
But Demeter,
For she knew that far beneath her sunlit fields
lived the other brother, the one no one spoke of.
Eldest, the wealthiest, the loneliest, Hades, king of the underworld.
When the three brothers divided the universe, Zeus had won the sky, Poseidon the sea,
And Hades, by cruel lot, had drawn the shadow realm, the final, joyless kingdom of the dead. His realm was vast. He was the king of all the souls that had ever lived. He was the god of all the gold and jewels hidden in the earth. He was wealth beyond measure.
He was not evil. He was just. He was stern. And he was utterly, desperately lonely. The shades could not speak. His dog could not converse. His kingdom was joyless.
He was the only god of the pantheon who had no wife, no queen to share his dark throne.
No goddess wanted to rule the land of the dead. No goddess wanted to leave the sun.
One day, a tremor shook his realm. A small fissure opened, and Hades, for the first time, looked up.
And he saw her.
Persephone, the maiden of spring. She was the perfect opposite of his world. She was life. She was laughter. She was warmth.
And in that single moment, the cold, lonely king of the dead fell in love.
But this was not chance. Another goddess was watching. Aphrodite, goddess of love.
This is not right. My power rules the heavens and the seas.
But the underworld remains untouched. She called her son Eros. That stubborn king must bend, she said.
Take your sharpest, most golden arrow. Strike the heart of Hades. Make him fall.
Eros drew his bow. The arrow of fate was loosed.
It flew down into the darkness and struck the king of the dead at the very moment he was gazing at the maiden.
The strike was not gentle. It was a wound, a fire.
His quiet loneliness became a burning, divine obsession. He had to have her.
But he was a king. He knew the law. He could not just take her from Demeter.
He went to the only one who could give permission, her father, his brother, Zeus.
Brother, I am lonely. I have no queen. You have many children. Give me one.
Zeus was trapped. He could not refuse the king of the underworld. But he knew his sister, Demeter, would never agree to let her daughter, the light, go to the dark. So Zeus, in his wisdom and his cowardice, made a fateful pact.
I cannot give her to you, brother. Demeter would wage war.
But I will not stop you from taking her. But I will not stop you.
It was a silent agreement, a dark pact. The king of the gods had just sanctioned the abduction.
Hades understood. That was all he need.
Back in the meadow, Persephone was laughing, blissfully unaware.
Her mother, Demeter, was away, blessing the far-off fields. The maiden was alone.
To seal his pact, Zeus created a distraction. He made the earth sprout the most beautiful flower ever seen, a narcissus with 100 perfect blooms.
Persephone saw it. She gasped.
My friends, wait! Oh. She ran from her companions, drawn to the magical lure.
She knelt. She reached out her hand. The moment her fingers touched the stem, it began.
Persephone screamed.
From the chasm, a black chariot, pulled by 4 shadow-black horses, erupted. And at the reins was the king, Hades. He did not stop. He did not speak.
He leaned, and with one powerful arm he seized her, pulling her into the chariot.
No! Father! Help me!
Her friends, the nymphs, heard. But they were helpless.
Hades held her tight, his eye of grip like a cage.
And steered his horses straight back down.
Into the darkness.
And then, with a sound like the world breaking, the earth slammed shut.
The field was silent. The flower was gone, but the scream had traveled.
What was that? Far away, Demeter stopped. Her blood ran cold.
Persephone?
Persephone!
She flew back to the meadow. It was empty. Only the weeping nymphs remained.
Where is she? Where is my daughter? Her heart broke. And with it, the world began to break.
For 9 days and 9 nights the earth.
And as her grief grew, her power, the power of life, began to fail. She walked past a field of corn. It withered. She passed an apple tree. Its leaves turned brown and died.
For 9 days, Demeter wandered, and with every step, the world grew cold. She asked everyone, mortals, gods, nymphs, I heard her scream, Hecate whispered, but I did not see who took her. The sun was too bright.
Only one saw what happened. The one who sees everything. Helios, the god of truth, could not lie. He looked away, his voice heavy with pity.
He has promised the girl to a husband, someone worthy of her.
For whom?
To the Dark One, your brother, Hades.
It was Hades who took her, with Zeus's full permission, to be his queen.
The blood drained from Demeter's face. Her grief solidified. It turned to a cold, diamond-hard rage.
Betrayed by her own brother, the king of the gods. Stolen by her other brother.
She did not fly to Olympus to plead. She would not beg.
If Zeus wants this, then he can rule a world without me.
She cast off her divine robes. She disguised herself as an old woman, a mortal crone named Doso.
She renounced Olympus.
Her wanderings brought her to the city of Eleusis. She sat by the maiden's well, weeping, a picture of mortal grief.
Bà ơi, có chuyện gì vậy?
I was kidnapped by pirates, Demeter lied, her voice frail. I escaped. I have nowhere to go.
The kind princesses, out of kindness, brought her back to the palace to meet their mother, Queen Metanera.
The queen had just given birth to a son, the baby prince, Demophoon.
Stay, good old woman. Be the nursemaid to my son.
Demeter, cold and immersed in grief, accepted. She entered the palace, hiding her divine identity.
She took the mortal child, and something in her frozen heart stirred. A new, strange affection.
These mortals are so weak, so fragile. I lost my daughter. I won't let this child be taken away.
I will bestow upon this child the gift that no one can take away.
I will protect this child.
And so, the secret ritual began.
By day, she was Doso, the nurse. But by night, she was a goddess. She anointed the child with ambrosia.
Expect it. And the baby grew unnaturally fast, strong, and beautiful, like a young god.
She built a great fire in the hearth.
And she placed the baby into the flames to burn away his mortality.
But the queen, Metanera, had grown suspicious. How was her son growing so fast? One night, she spied. She peered into the hall, and she saw it. Her son in the fire. My son! Ah! 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 Yeah! You witch! She burst in and snatched the child from the fire.
The ritual was broken. Demeter's divine form exploded into the room.
Now,
Now, thanks to your ignorance, he will just be a man. He will suffer. He will die.
The king and queen grovelled, begging for forgiveness. Demeter's rage cooled, leaving only ice.
Build me a temple,
she commanded.
I will sit there, and I will not move until my brother Zeus gives me back my daughter.
The people of Eleusis, horrified, built the temple. Demeter, dressed in black, walked in and sat down.
And she began her strike.
The sun still shone. The rain still fell. But the earth did nothing. Demeter had withdrawn her power. The seeds would not sprout. The buds would not blossom.
The animals starved. Humanity was being wiped out. They prayed, but Demeter did not listen.
On Olympus, Zeus watched. This had gone too far.
It wasn't just the mortals. It was the sacrifices. The smoke from the altars had stopped. The gods were receiving no worship, no offerings. They were being forgotten. Zeus realized his sister, in her grief, was more powerful than he. She was starving them all. He had to relent. He sent his first messenger. Iris, the rainbow, flew to Demeter's dark temple.
Oh, great Demeter.
Iris failed. Zeus sent the others: Apollo, Artemis, Hera herself. One by one, the Olympians came, bearing gifts, pleading, threatening.
Persephone.
Zeus was beaten, defeated by a grieving mother. He had only one option left. He had to break his pact with Hades. He summoned his final messenger.
The one god who could travel between worlds. The only one who could enter the underworld.
Hermes, Zeus ordered, his voice tired. And leave. Hermes.
特加 Go.
Go to the darkness. Find my brother. And tell him.
Hermes nodded and shot like a falling star.
But down into the kingdom of the dead, heading toward the dark throne of King Hades.
But down in the underworld, things had changed.
Persephone was no longer the screaming maiden. She was a queen, a dark.
While the world above froze, the world below had found its balance.
Persephone, the girl of flowers, had become a queen. The dread queen of the underworld. She had accepted her fate. The shades, the ghosts, they obeyed her. She was their mistress.
And Hades, he adored her. He had given her half his kingdom. He treated her not as a prisoner, but as an equal.
And Persephone, though she missed the sun, had found a new, solemn power in the darkness.
She was ruling by his side, when a light flashed in the throne room.
Hermes, the messenger god. He bowed, his face grim.
My lord Hades, my queen Persephone, I come with a message from Zeus. Demeter, she is destroying the world.
My mother?
She will let all of creation die, Hermes said, unless you are returned to her. He turned to Hades. Zeus commands it. You must let her go.
Hades sat, his face unreadable. He had followed the Pact. He had been betrayed by Zeus. He looked at Persephone. She was looking at him, her eyes pleading. She wanted to see her mother. He was trapped. He could not fight a global famine. He could not defy the king of the gods.
My queen, you are free to go. You can return to your mother.
Persephone gasped, tears of joy filling her eyes. She was going home.
But before you leave, my queen, you must be hungry from the news.
He offered her one last thing. A single, blood-red pomegranate.
Just a taste, he said, smiling sadly, to give her strength for the journey. A last taste of food from my garden. The unwritten law of all realms. He who eats the food of the dead.
Hades smiles. Chỉ một miếng thôi. Can never truly leave.
She took the fruit, and she ate.
Myths vary. She ate 6 seeds.
Now go. Your mother is waiting.
I am ready.
Hermes led her up, out of the darkness. They flew to the temple at Eleusis, where Demeter sat.
Mother. Mother.
Demeter's head snapped up. She saw her, alive, radiant, her daughter.
Persephone. The goddess ran, her grief shattering.
The world healed. The frost melted. The snow vanished.
The brown grass turned green. The bare trees burst into blossom. The dead fields instantly grew ripe with corn.
Life had returned. The Great Famine was over. Spring was born from a mother's joy.
You are back. You are safe. I will never let you go again.
Tell me the truth. Did you eat anything? While you were in that dark place?
No, Mother. I haven't eaten anything. Oh.
Oh, what? What did you eat? Only a few seeds. Only 6 seeds from a pomegranate.
Demeter staggered back. Home! No!
She knew the law, the ancient, unbreakable law. Persephone was now bound.
Demeter's rage returned, tenfold. ZEU!
Zeus himself appeared, desperate. Sister, please.
No compromise! I want my daughter!
She is MY Queen. She ate of my fruit. The law is the law.
Bao nhiêu hạt?
Finally, a compromise was struck. The Great Compromise.
6 hạt.
How many seeds?
6.
And 6 months.
As the girl of spring. And the other 6 months with your mother in the light.
It was the only way. Demeter, her heart broken but not beaten, agreed.
And say, the seasons were born.
For 6 months of the year, when Persephone walks the earth.
Demeter is joyful, trees bloom, wheat grows.
But then, the time comes.
And as she descends, Demeter's grief returns. The leaves turn brown and fall.
And then the snow comes. The ground freezes. This is winter.
The world is dead, lamenting, waiting.
And at Eleusis, Demeter, grateful to the humans who sheltered her, taught them her secret rituals, the Eleusinian mysteries, the promise that, like the
versions. This story of death and rebirth became the central myth of ancient Greece.